You're listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt, where we talk about hunting, shooting, fishing, camping, and everything else that the great outdoors has to offer. Let's get into it. All right, finally got here, Nathan. It's been a while coming, a lot of misfires. Glad to have you on the podcast, mate. Sparked Installations is your company and you do everything 12 volt. So I'm excited to pick your brain tonight because a lot of what I do is outdoors and I'm looking at a new setup. So this one's going to be good.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. It's we got there in the end, but yeah, it's definitely keen to go through and sort of share a bit of knowledge, I guess. Well, try my best.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And look, before we get into it, I came across you on the fact that I love Facebook sometimes. Like social media is good for some things. And one of them is I've been keeping my eye out because I've been planning to upgrade my camper trailer and my car and do a bit of different 12 volt work in there. And I was starting to look around and search of who is local and who would be able to sort of get some advice and talk to make my decisions. You're local, Smeaton Grange. You've just opened new headquarters. That's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a sort of long time coming. We've been mobile for quite a while, and it's to keep up with the level of the work that we're sort of getting demands off for. And yeah, just being able to sort of provide a better quality service and making sure that we can fabricate in house and all that sort of thing. It's been really, really good.
So I guess before we get into my questions, do you want to tell everybody what you actually do? Because you have got the premises now, and I saw you doing chivalry boxes, I believe, and so there's a couple of things which that's great stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, well, our main business model now is we can pretty much look after everything from front to back of the full drive. Not only full drive, trade setups, heavy vehicles, some more minor stuff on heavy vehicle. But yeah, we've teamed up with a company as well called BK Canopies. We're in their premises now, so all under the one roof. So that's allowed us to have access to metal fabrication and that sort of thing as well. And on top of that, we do offer LG Chivalry canopies, which are more of the budget-friendly sort of options, all the way up to, we can do massive builds like we've done on a few recent vehicles that are, pretty much mild to wild is the plan. But yeah, we specialize in 12 volt as well. That's our main bread and butter, 12 volt. So towing setups, caravan setups, camper trailers, all of that sort of thing. That's our bread and butter.
I've seen a couple of latest vehicle mods you've done with the boxes and the full kit out inside for obviously touring, and they look schmick. So I'm glad we're chatting because I've got a couple of ideas that I want to run. So I've always wanted a sort of portable box in the back of the ute. So I pulled the trigger on a King's Bat Block 40 because just the flexibility of that box, it's already got the DC charger and everything's in there. Just run one straight from the battery, plug it into an Anderson plug, run the fridge in the ute. Just makes life a little easier and it's not locked in. That was one of my things because I just got a fiberglass canopy on the ute. So that was the way I want to go there. But this is where it gets trickier for me. With my camper trailer, I want to go one of the half canopies and I want to deck it out so it's got the full 12 volt running off a solar panel off the rooftop tent. So off the rooftop tent, run it down into the box and then have an inverter, then have the fridge running on there, the coffee machine. The wife's even talking about an air fryer in there, basically to make life as easy and quick as possible because I've got twins and I've got 3 young kids, twins and a 4.5-year-old.
Yeah.
So for me, we need quick and easy. How is the best way to start thinking about this setup? Is it measurements? Is it buy it all and just make it fit? How do you go about planning how it all fits in?
Well, the main thing we do when we're setting up anything 12 volt, this is a thing that I tell a lot of customers, and it's almost a broken record that we'll go through. And it's the main thing is you need to look at what you're looking to run. So you've got it set pretty much right where you are now. And you're talking about, I want to run a coffee machine, I want to run an inverter, I'm thinking of an air fryer. a fridge. Is it one fridge? Is it two fridges? How many days off grid you're going to go? That sort of basic information. Um, and also what sort of, how do you camp? Like the number one thing that we find is a lot of people will come through and go, I only go away for weekends. And you sort of say, well, okay, it's only a weekend. The weekend is probably the worst thing you can do for a 12-volt setup because generally you'll go out camping, you'll take, your fridge full of food and you'll chuck it in just on before you leave. Everything's hot. You're trying to cool it down, so everything's working as hard as it possibly can. Um, you drive 2 hours to your local camp, so you're not recharging very well. And then, you'll set up for the weekend. You'll go, oh, we're only here for a couple of nights. I won't bother putting out the panel, or I won't bother doing this, or I won't bother doing that. And then you get there and we got down to 0%. Well, it's like, well, you're running it for 2 or 3 days, working it's really, really hard. That's the sort of thing that you need to really look at is what style of camping you do, what style of touring you do. Are you a person that loves to sit around in the same spot, really explore that spot? For someone like yourself, if you're going out for hunting trips, you might park the car for 3-4 days and then go out hunting on foot for 3 days or on a buggy or on a Polaris or whatever it is. So that's really the crucial focus that you need to put towards setting up 12-volt setup. It's how many days are you going to be parked? What sort of weather conditions generally you go in? Like, do you like to go up through the snowies in winter? Are you someone that can't get away from the coast in the middle of summer? Temperature factors, how hard your fridges work, all that factors into setting up a system properly to get what you want out of it.
And that is why I wanted you on here, because there's so much more that I think people don't think about before they get into it. Now, I'm a bit of everything you just said. I love the snowies in winter. I love the South Coast in summer. And because it's on the camper trailer, it's not going to charge from the car. So it's going to be purely off a permanent solar panel. Now, the battery's the big one, isn't it? Because if you don't get a big enough battery to store, you're going to have an issue. But the way I want to sort of set it up is the camper trailer that is permanently just parked and the fridge is constantly running and it just keeps ticking over on its own. Is a one battery the way to go, or is a battery bank? What's the best way to do that?
Well, you need to look at, the main thing we'd look at is, say, for instance, if you're talking, what you're talking about running, most of the time you could say we'll use a 200 amp hour battery system as an example. That could be done in multiple different ways. You could do it in a split 100 to 100 amp hour batteries, which is good for the fact that you've got redundancy there. So in case you do have a failure, you're doing remote touring, you can always run on a 100 amp hour system. The number one thing that's what a lot of people will look at, and there's a big thing in our industry with how big an amp hour battery you can go. The easiest way to explain it is if you've got a bucket of water, you're poking holes in the bottom of it, that's all the stuff you're running. Doesn't matter how big the bucket is, if you can't fill it up fast enough, bucket's going to be empty. So you can put a massive battery bank in there, but it's number one thing you need to look at is your recharge. So for instance, I'll use my car as an example. I run my 21D Max. That's got a 200 amp hour battery system in it, runs twin fridges constantly, full-time coffee machine, 12-volt ovens. You can run air fryers, induction cooking, the whole lot off a 200 amp hour system, but I have 460 watt of solar on the roof. So when I'm parked at camp, I'm getting 27 to 28 amps of charge, which is the same as what I'm getting while I'm driving. So it doesn't matter if I'm parked or driving, I'm getting the same amount of charge. And that's the crucial element, is how fast you can recharge your setup, because that's what makes it true off-grid. If you're parked up and you're using a lot of time, like a lot of power while you're parked up and you're not getting that charge back in, it might be great for 3, 4, 5 days. Then after that, it's pretty much useless because you're only running on what you can get back in.
So with the battery, I get what you're saying there. I think that's a great analogy too. Very simple and easy to understand. Yeah. If you're running 200 amp hour and you're talking about an inverter. So a couple of things I've looked at is the size of the inverter, what type of inverter, because the startup of electrical appliances, especially the 240 volt, do tend to suck a bit more than what they're actually running at. If I'm going to run something like a 1700 watt air fryer, for example, what am I looking at from an inverter standpoint? And I'm guessing a 200 amp hour is more than sufficient to be able to do that job.
Yeah, so it depends on if we're talking lithium these days because everything is pretty much lithium. So you got to look at when you're with any battery system, you got to look at your max discharge, and there's certain specs on the actual batteries themselves that you need to focus on. So, for instance, if we run a 200 amp hour, they have a 200 amp discharge that they can run continuously at. Um, then you can run a 2000 watt inverter. So generally, we find a 2000 watt inverter covers 99% of appliances. That'll cover your single inductions, your coffee machines, your air fryers, most of the stuff that's compact enough to take camping. There are coffee machines in the market that'll pull more power than that, but they also have inbuilt grinders. And, you're taking away a full cafe level coffee machine with you, where most people will go, hey, let's run a pod machine. It's quick, easy, convenient. That's what we're looking at camp. So something like that, induction cooking, that's a whole nother level. That's a whole nother topic we can go on for hours about. But yeah, 90% of the time, a 200 amp hour system we find works really, really well for people if it's set up with the correct solar. And the number one thing is if the customer is educated by us on how to correctly use the system. So that's the number one thing. It's how to set up your solar, how to use your monitoring systems, your apps, and all that stuff on your phone or on screens, whatever way you're going to go to maximize your charge, maximize every little bit of pieces you get, every little bit of charge you can get out of the system, and keeping an eye on things. It's the old story. Preventative is better than the cure. It's if you can see something's drawing and that panel's not receiving as much power, it's one of those things that you can save yourself thousands of dollars. We see it continuously where customers are coming in and they've been sold 4, 5, 600 amp hour battery systems. And the caravan industry is a perfect example. They'll sell you an off grid caravan with 400 watts of solar on it. It's not going to do the job.
So, is there a way for the camper trailer to charge off the car whilst you're driving?
Yeah, definitely. So, you can run a DC to DC charger in your camper trailer, powered off an Anderson plug from the car. So, that's what we do as a standard for all our towing packages, or we call them a towing package. So, caravan, camper, and any RVs or anything like that, or toy haulers. We do that as a standard. So you run your 240, you run your DC to DC charge, you run a 240 volt charger, and then you'll also do your solar input. So ideally, you want to be able to try and get two out of the three, so your solar and your DC charge while you're driving down the road. So if we run them through separate controllers, if you've got position on a hard shell, is it a hard shell camper?
Yes, it's aluminium. So it's one of the clamshell aluminium ones.
Yeah. So if you run something like that and you've got a place where you can actually put the panel while you're driving, what we can do then is have your charge coming in through your solar. So if you've got a 200 watt panel, you get 10 amps of charge out of that. And then you're driving down the road, and depending on the alternator capacity of the car and all that sort of stuff, you might need a 25 or a 40 amp charger or a 50 or whatever way we can sort of work it. Then you'll end up getting your charge into your caravan, into your camper through that as well. So you can sort of get your 25 from your car and 10 from your solar. You're cruising down the road getting 35 amp hours back every hour. So, if you're using a 200 amp hour system, and that's where you look at your drive times and that sort of thing. So if you're going to go for a weekend away and you're going to do 5 hours of driving, you effectively are gaining 150 amp hours in your battery bank.
Yeah, right. Can you run it? So this is how I want to set it up. I want that dual battery system in the car that's portable with a just a fridge freezer sort of capacity, 90 litre, I think 45.
Yep.
And then running it into the back, having an upright fridge in the camper trailer. Can you charge both of those off the battery of the car and the alternator, or is that asking too much?
What tow vehicle is it?
Mitsubishi Triton MQ.
MQ. So depending on, I'm pretty sure the new Tritons of that model have got a 90 amp alternator. So it depends on the vehicle. A lot of them these days we can do upgraded alternators and that, which are pretty simple. For instance, the D-Maxes, which is a platform that we're crazy familiar with, is they're a 90 amp alternator out of the box, and MUXs are about 130. They're pretty much useless. They don't do much at all. So we can upgrade them to 160 or 240 amp alternators, and then you can put the sun through them. So it's definitely something that's where you're better off spending a lot of your money, is getting something like that, set it up. Because you can look at a battery system and spend crazy amounts of money these days. We do everything. Sometimes you can spend up, a couple of grand, or you can spend up to 50 or $60,000. It's that much of a variation these days. So your number one thing is you got to look at, what your tow vehicle is going to be. Are you going to be keeping that vehicle for a long time? Is it worth putting the upgrades into it? And a lot of the charges now we can actually dial them back, and they're only going to run at that level when they need the charge. So, saying that you've got the portable battery block in the back of the car, is there a thing where you're going to need to be charging both of them at the same time? Because if you've got the camper on, you're really going to have that there. So you can probably put a 30 amp charger in the camper.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I know there's such generic questions because I'm trying to make it as sort of specific but general as possible for people out there who are thinking about what sort of setup and how they can go about it, because I think especially the hunting community, you don't go for a day generally, so you're usually going for a bit of a trip. And once you sort of set up, if you're in the right spot, especially if you're hunting like state forest or on a private block, you're probably walking from there, as you mentioned before. So it makes sense that it's sort of a set, forget, let the sun do its thing. Obviously, it's impacted by cloudy days, and we won't get into all that sort of stuff. But when you're talking about a standard fridge and that running, do they run that much? So a couple of things I've been told is that the more you have in them, the less harder the compressor and everything has to work to keep it cold. And because of that, you want to keep it packed most of the time. But if that's the case, is the draw rate really significant when it's just idling, I guess? Hey there, listeners. Are you looking for that awesome hunting t-shirt or hoodie to level up your wardrobe? Well, head over to the AHB store and check out the range that we have to offer. We have a variety of different collections for you. So whether it's supporting the show, hunting, fishing, camping, drone fishing, or something else outdoors, we probably have something there that is for you. Each piece is designed so that you can look great whilst representing your outdoor passion. Whether you're down the local, hanging with friends, training for the rut, or just chilling at home, there's a design to suit. Just search Australian Hunting and Beyond Linktree and head to the store. What are you waiting for? You're just one click away from representing that outdoor passion with style. So, let's get into that new clothing.
When they're not running, they will pretty much turn the compressors off, and they won't actually run any current draw at all. So depending on the fridge. So for instance, we've seen a lot of a big shift in the industry in the last few years with going to uprights and going to those draw style fridges. I run one of each of those in my car. The draw fridge is absolutely hopeless. Like a 30 litre draw fridge will pull more power than an 85 litre upright.
Yeah,
It's
right.
that wild just because of the pure installation of it. The seals on the front, trying to actually seal the unit, they're going to work a lot harder. So, for instance, we'll probably see maybe about 10 amps an hour out of an 85 litre upright. That's in a relatively moderate condition. So, I'm talking a 30-degree day, beautiful day to be camping, out with the family, kids are opening and closing the door, all those factors going. It's the same as your fridge at home. You'd probably see maybe about 10 amps an hour. Oh, probably, no, sorry, it would be about 4 amps an hour. We usually see 10 amps on a daily basis. And then your fridge draws about 20 to 30 a day. So there's that much variation. Your chest fridges pretty much run them on a 100 amp hour battery and they'll last forever. They're just that good. Your old school style Engels, Dominics, all that sort of thing. They're phenomenal just with the efficiency. But it's the pure insulation size that they have in them. You open up an upright these days, there's 10 mil of insulation. You open up an old Engel and there's about 75 mil of insulation. Your fridge is, the outside diameter is about 600 mil wide and you're getting 300 mil of storage space. But it's the same thing it's the same thing as your house fridge and everything. The old thing that we got told as kids: don't leave the drawer open and keep the fridge full as you can. And an empty freezer draws more power. All of that is actually, it is true. It's wasn't a lifestyle. That is all crucial components, especially when you're off grid, because your main thing. That's what I tell a lot of people. Try to keep things cold. If you can have the ability to have, for instance, on a camper or a caravan, load the fridge the night before while it's on 240. let everything get cold. Don't open the fridge as much as you have to. If you're going to do an extended trip and you're worried about pushing the, battery system, is it something that you might not put there's so many waters or something in there. You might go, hey, we don't need ice cold water. We can go with, room temperature water, so we're not opening the fridge every day, that sort of thing. But you can also counterbalance that with solar. So there is a big, it's sort of, there's not really a one size fits all in my belief to a lot of battery systems because we have packages and, the advertised packages for a lot of time. But generally we won't ever stick with a package because once we start talking to a customer, this is, for instance, with what you're looking at doing, you're sort of going to be one of the outliers and how you're going to use the camper because you're not going to use it for your hunting trips away, but you're also using it for extended camping trips with the family. Compared to a young family that comes to us to say, "Hey, we go away for 3 weekends of a year." There is a vast differences there. So yeah, there's not really a one size fits all. It's very bespoke of how we would set it up. But generally, we find look, that 200 amp hour range suits 99% of people. Saying that, we've done many systems that go up to 600, 800 to 1,000 amp hours and, 2,000 odd watts of solar on caravans. But that's usually the extreme.
All right. So you mentioned before there has been a big market shift to lithium batteries, and I have to say that from using, flooded or lead batteries previously, the weight difference is major. It's so much nicer moving a lithium battery.
Yes.
It's just so much more comfortable. What are the pros and cons? Is there, the lithium is lighter, but does it hold charge as well? If you have a 120 amp hour wet battery as opposed to a 120 amp hour lithium, do they discharge at different rates? Are they fairly on track with each other?
Look, lithium is leaps and bounds ahead of anything AGM. It is the biggest shift we've seen in the full drive industry, in my belief, we've ever seen. It has realistically it's made camping becoming like it's a house. Like you can be out in a rooftop tent, and as you said, coffee machines, air fryers. If I said 5 years ago that we were going to run an air fryer in the middle of the Simpson Desert, people would look at you like you're a nutcase. But these days it's completely normal, and with Starlink now you're getting Netflix out there too. So it is really lithium is the way to go. I don't find there's the only drawback in lithium is realistically understanding the technology, which is in any shift of the market you're going to get that. You're going to get people that sort of are hesitant to change over. Like I say to a lot of people, it's the old carbureted versus EFI thing. When people want you talk to your granddad and no, carburetor is no good. You got to go for, whatever it was. It's the same situation we went through, all those years ago. We're just doing it now in a new platform and its technology coming through. The only drawback is really knowing what your discharge rates are and knowing what you can actually run off the battery. As for your capacity, 120 amp hour lithium compared to 120 amp hour AGM, there is no comparison. That AGM, you'd be choosing, am I going to run my fridge all night or one LED light? Where if you've got the right setup, 120 amp hour lithium system, you're running your fridge, your lights, and your coffee machine in the morning.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it is. It has done. Generally, we look at your lithium's capacity just because the way we can draw them all the way down without hurting the batteries. You can generally get 60% more, 50% more capacity out of the lithium. They will recharge faster, and the life cycle is about 10 times greater. So your old flooded batteries, you're looking at 150 to 200 cycles from down to 50% and back up. That's what we consider a cycle. Where lithiums these days, companies are warranting them for 2 to 5,000 cycles.
Yeah, right. So it's a big difference.
Oh, it's phenomenal. So, there's a whole talk about the weight thing, and that's what we try to explain to people. I almost say it's a third of the weight because when you go down to, if you needed to do what you were talking about in your camper trailer in AGM, you would need about 400 amp hours, if not more. 100 amp hour AGM is 22 kilos. So if you put four of those together, you're talking 88 kilos. We can do that now in 16.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It is honestly it's um it's half the reason we sort of started the business was the main thing with lithium coming through and been in the game for quite a while, but seeing this go through it just pulled back a whole new excitement with what you can do in the industry. It wasn't we went from, here's your Red Arc SPI isolator, that everyone runs and an AGM under the bonnet, and that's what we considered automotive like full drive electrics. Um, now to it's just this whole world. A car build didn't really involve electrics 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It wasn't considered an essential part of the car. It was I'll put big suspension in it. I'll put camping gear, drawers, that sort of thing. And electrical was if I need it, I'll put it in. But now it's actually like probably one of the more important components of the vehicle build, which is really it's good for the industry and it's exciting because we're seeing so much more innovation.
Well, on a little bit of that, just to touch legality wise, I'm not sure if you're probably all up on it. I guess you would be, but from a insurance company point of view, if people are doing their own 12-volt sort of stuff and there's a fire, I'm guessing that the insurance company would wipe them.
Look, it's a very hard question to answer. I've heard of situations of that happen. Um, I haven't had it happen to anyone close to me, thank God. But um, I would say, look, I recommend everyone. Your best bet is in any situation like that. You can always make the open line of communication. There are big regulation changes just been through in the caravan industry, which has changed the way lithium batteries are utilized, changed the way they're stored and they're actually installed and all that sort of thing, and certain licensing and certain crucial elements that need to be followed. That's on all new installs and anything built from I think it's November 24. Might be a little bit, but onwards.
Yep.
That's the latest legislation that's come in. But it's like anything, you wouldn't go and wire up your house if you didn't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Your car's almost just as important. So that's sort of what we say to a lot of people is I'm not sort of trying to upsell people when we say certain things. It's more of a thing of, if you're going to do things, make sure you do it correctly. If you're not sure about something, take it down to a local auto sparky. If customers in the area, bring it down to us. We can look over things. We can point you in the right direction. It's not always about trying to make the most amount of money. It's, put people sort of make sure that the cars are safe.
Yeah, and I think that's the message that I'm sort of trying to understand is that we've all probably been on social media and seen cars burnt down or things go wrong, and that's the one I want to get my head around because I don't really want to play around with it personally because I'd rather not be sleeping in my rooftop tent and have a fire because I don't really want to jump out of the top.
No, it's probably not ideal.
No, so probably working out is how it's done, and then also making it all fit. And there's so many different options. I find new things all the time, and how we're going to set it up, and how we tweak and test. And look, it's exciting. I'm not going to lie. We go camping. The wife and I come home, and we're talking about this and this, and what we're going to add here, and how it can look, and the like. So it is very, very exciting. When we talk about the actual fit inside, so your kits look like, I'm guessing it's sort of plywood with marine carpet, like they look schmick in how it looks finished. In the canopy, are you able to fully custom sort of sizes of drawers? Do you run timber? Do you run, how do you do that? Are you running, are you just buying something like I've seen TC Boxes do a pull out sort of storage rack, or do you make them yourself?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of companies. We don't, we do sort of limited fabrication in-house, but I've always, you go to a watchmaker for your watch, a shoemaker for your shoe. But we work with, that's for instance, the company that we're in with BK Canopies. They do a lot of our fabrication work. So we've got access under the same roof as us, to CNC plasma, breast breakers, guillotines, guys that know CAD design better than I know anything. So that's where we can make a lot of aluminium and metal fabrication inside house. So a lot of stuff we're doing a lot lately has been aluminium fabricated. So that's all built in house. That that's all under the same roof, I should say. Not in our business, but we deal direct. They are literally right behind us. So yeah, we do that, and we also work with another company, Off Road Systems, who do pretty much notorious in the industry. They've been around for 25 odd years. They do a lot of our CNC work for timber panels, that sort of thing. We also do smaller stuff with timber and carpeting in house as well. It really depends on the system. So there's certain times where we look at weight savings and that sort of thing. So, if we've got to build up a floor, for instance, in a canopy because there's a return lip or something like that, you're not going to be able to put your drawers in. If we do that over aluminium, generally it's going to be a lot heavier, just because the thickness of aluminium we need to go to actually make it strong. So that's when we might employ using plywood and carpet, just to keep the weight down. In the other situations, if it's already got a floor in it, we'll build an aluminium drawer because it's actually a bit lighter, and it'll be just as strong or stronger than anything. And then we can fully TIG weld it as well. So it really does depend on sort of what the situation requires, but we utilize pretty much every material that you would use. And also it depends on the customer's requirements. People with kids generally don't want sharp edges. They like the timber look because it's got a bit of softer, it's got the carpet around it. Kids aren't going to smack their head into it and split their head open as easy. Where, a lot of people some guys really want the real hard wearing, for instance, we get a lot of hunters and stuff like that. They want stuff they can throw guns into, they can throw ammunition into, they can do all that sort of stuff and not really worry about damaging it, scratching carpet, tearing anything. Then that's the way to go.
So how would be the best way to approach it? Would it be come to you guys? Do you do an appointment? Do you sit down with the person and go, okay, here's the space we're working with. Here's all the things I want to jam into it. Here's how you sort of, I'm guessing it would be laid out and you design it, talk about it there. You probably have heaps of different experience because you've had a million different setups. So you know which ways work nicely, I'm guessing.
Yeah, definitely. So what we generally will do to most people, we're open pretty much every day, Monday to Friday. So we'd say to everyone, if you want to come down, have a chat to us, have a look through our setups. My car's always there. We've always got other cars coming around. There's always photos, that sort of thing that we can run through people. So generally we'll give people, the base idea. We'll have a bit of a conversation like we are now. You have a base conversation of, I'm looking at getting this canopy fitted out. I want to do this, and this is what I'll do. We'll walk you through a few of our displays and say, this is what we've got. These are other options we have. And then we can sort of finesse it down to your exact requirements. So we don't I've sort of steered away a lot from doing a one size fits all because I think that's sort of flooding the market now. Not saying that it's generally a bad thing, but I find that a lot of people are getting a lot more value for money out of the setups that we're doing where they're very, very tailored. They are, if you say you want, we did a setup last week that, the customer wanted a whole bunch of room behind everything because he had a 3-door canopy. So we made all the drawers at 500 mil, just as deep as a fridge. So he still had everything perfectly level across the back. That's the sort of level we mainly go to. So we'll sort of point you in a direction and say, this is what works for us. This is what we like as a kitchen setup. I generally walk people through my car, show you the things I hate and the things I love. I've had 3 setups on the car now, and there's probably going to be a 4th very soon. So it's just constantly evolving. So that's generally what we'll do. Where we do a lot of full drive shows as well. So we're a regular at Sydney, Eastern Creek. We do that every year. We do a handful of Newcastle, Maitland, that sort of area, and a couple out west and that sort of thing. So if there are people out there that sort of want to look through a setup, my car's always on display, or we walk you through the photos. That's generally how we'll work it. And then process from there is we'll go through, come up with the exact design, sort of if we need a CAD file it, if we need to, 3D image it for a customer. Generally, if people are a little bit harder to sort of wrap their heads around the visualization of it, we'll do our best to sort of, this is what your base is going to look like. And then, we go from there.
So there's a couple of different products I've been checking out, whether they be you run them through the inverter or they're an actual 12-volt product. Yep. So an example would be, I know there's sandwich presses. You've got a 12-volt one, or you can just get the normal one you buy from Kmart and plug it into the inverter. Do you find that there is a better way to go? If there is a 12-volt item out there, is that better to run than going the 240 with the inverter?
Look, In a way, we do still find the 240 appliances work. For instance, there's the whole thing on 12-volt air fryers. They're a fantastic bit of kit. It depends on how you're setting up the battery system. It all comes sort of back to the same old thing. If you're running a 12-volt air fryer, for instance, and or a 12-volt sandwich press, and then you haven't got an inverter in your system, great. You don't have to go and spend a whole bunch of money to try and get it all set up just to handle that one item. If you've already got the system in place, then the 240 ones sometimes are better. They'll probably pull a little bit less power because they're more powerful. They run for less time. So we generally find power current draw is either better or equal. But it all depends on how you've got it set up. If you've already invested the money into a good system that's going to handle what you throw at it, then yeah, definitely you go buy your Kmart sandwich press for $49 and off you go. Um, where your 12-volt ones might be a few $100. Um, that's sort of the way we look at it. Saying that, yeah, the 12-volt stuff does have a place. Is it going to replace the 240 appliances or inverters? I don't think it's at that level yet, but I don't think it's far away.
Okay, that's yeah, it's really interesting because I see all these different products, like as I said, the air fryer, the 12-volt one, and then looking at it, they are quite expensive as opposed to one that you can, I think Audi had one for $50 this week, a 3.5 litre one. And
If
it's
you
like,
break it,
geez,
come home, you don't even care. You just buy another one.
$50, yeah, 1,400 watts at 50 bucks. You're sort of like, geez, that's not bad, even
Yeah.
if it doesn't last that long. That's $50.
Yeah,
It's
the
sort
kids
of
drop it off on the side of the ute. We don't have to worry about it. Just
well,
get another one,
exactly
and off you
right. That's
go.
sort of it's such a tricky one because you got to know where you want to spend your money and where you can save some money. Okay. And that's probably a
Definitely.
nice little segue into saying, where is the best investment? If you're looking at it and you're sitting there, if money is not an option, like not a concern, but if you're sitting there going, the bang for buck, the main thing you're looking at is battery, solar panel, compared to appliances, or is it bigger an inverter? What are you saying? Sort of, is there a list that you like to go with and say this is sort of number one priority down?
Yeah, definitely. So we generally will stick to batteries being a priority, as in the safety priority. So there's a lot of cheap batteries on the market that giving a bad rap to lithium and that sort of thing. So we try to really sell people, make sure you stick with a battery that sticks to standards. So, there's an AZNS standard that we should all be running by. So as long as you're buying a battery that's compliant to those, that's great. That's the way to go with it. And number two is mainly your charging system. Yeah, because we're going back to the same sort of thing. If you can't charge it, it's going to be useless. So generally, I'll say to people, if you're going to do a battery system, start off with a good quality battery, a good quality branded charger. So something like a Red Arc, and then a Drive, a Victron, something along those lines. They don't have to be those brands, but something reputable with a good warranty structure, with a good technical support team behind the product. That's what you need. And then number two is just you sort of work your way down that list. Your inverters are up there. Solar is one of those weird ones that generally you can't really stick to one brand of solar because there's so many different space requirements. So it's usually find the best quality one that'll fit the space and also a budget. But look, if your solar panel doesn't die, if your solar panel doesn't last, and you've got good charging system in place, you're still going to be okay. You're still not going home. Um, you know, if your charging system's sort of having a bit of a day, but you've got a really good quality battery in there and it's happy, then you're still not going home. So that's the way I flow through it. Is if a battery dies, you're going home. These days, if you've got your fridge there, all your food's about to get spoiled. You're probably going to pack up and go home. So make sure that that's a good quality unit that's going to last. That has a good support structure behind it, and that's the biggest thing with the investment of lithium and stuff these days is, it's not a small amount of money. I never try to hide that fact. It is a lot of money for a lot of people, um, and you want to buy into a company that's going to support you. That's the main thing, and it doesn't mean the installer, doesn't mean the auto electrician, doesn't mean anyone like that, but the actual people support of buying and selling the batteries. Make sure they're a reputable company. Do your research on them. Look into their past, look into reviews, that sort of thing. How long has a business been set up for? There's so many companies that are sort of popping up now selling stuff that have, been in business for 6 months. And then we see people constantly sort of going, oh, yeah, I can't get a hold of this person, but I spent $1,500 to $2,000 on the battery. That's where your main priority should go. If you're going to spend the money on it, make sure you go to a company that's actually going to support it. The ones we work with everyone local. So if there is anything going wrong with it, we can turn around within a couple of days. Um, that's the number one thing. It's making sure that you've got a support network there for any of your investment. And look, that goes with anything in life, really. I guess if you're going to pour a lot of money into something, you're not going to pour it into something that's a bit shoddy just to save a couple $100. Um, that's the trick behind it. And then you just work your way down, and you sort of got to prioritize what's going to be right for you and the family as well. Your battery safety these days is a number one crucial element, and a lot of the things that get passed up when people are designing a system for themselves or for mates or whatever, they sort of pass up who's going to be actually fitting it. That becomes a sort of third rate thing these days. And that's one thing that people really, really need to consider is, what wiring kits are you going to use? Are you going to make sure they're correct? Not an issue if you DIY it, but generally people will go and buy a whole setup and then they'll go buy a really cheap wiring kit because, I'll save a bit of money there, where that's the crucial component of the whole system. So that's where you sort of want to make sure that all your protection stuff is in place, and that you're actually spending your money in the right areas. But yeah, that's what I would say is your main criteria.
So let's talk solar panels a little bit, because a heap of issues I've seen, again, back to social media, but panels coming off caravans, or people have glued something down. Yeah, 100%, and that's a major concern.
Not a good time.
You don't want to see that happen. That it's extremely dangerous to other motorists that you are liable for. What is there much of a difference between the semi-flexible, the fixed? Like, do you have a recommendation with solar panels and which way you like to mount them? Is there sort of tips or tricks that you would sort of lean towards in your setups?
Yeah, so we generally run pretty much only run fixed panels, like a solar panel. The semi-flexibles, your mounting options aren't there for like a mechanical fastener. So, for instance, the semi-flex panels these days, they're pretty much like a sheet of cloth, really strong sheet of cloth, but you're only reliant on a silicon-based adhesive. There are really, really good ones on the market. We use quite a few of them as an aid to our systems as well. But again, we don't use the sort of stuff we use, is 400 odd kilo rated for a square meter of adhesive. So that sort of stuff we can get away with. But yeah, mechanical fastening is the number one, and that's where your solar panels come into. You can actually bolt through the side, you can rivet them, you can nutsert them, you can do all that sort of thing. So make sure it's actually mechanically held. And then making sure that your mounts are made of a better quality material. There's a lot of stuff these days. Most of the stuff we see that's fallen off or about to fall off that comes in is generally plastic mounts and that sort of thing, just with UV. It just cracks plastic like crazy. So that's the main thing we look at is, it's making sure it's like anything, you bolt a tray on a car, you got to make sure it's solid. The solar panel's no different. And it's not generally DIYs we see it with a lot with caravan, like a lot of manufacturers as well. We've seen it a couple of times with. It's just depending on what quality products, and a lot of the time it's not really even fair to put it on the installer of that as well, because we've seen it with failure of brackets. A bracket wasn't welded correctly, things like that can cause issues like that. So it's just, again, going back to the same old story of just making sure you're using quality products. And by quality, I don't mean throwing a lot of money at it. That means we're just making sure that things are done correctly and that they're thick enough gauge brackets, that if the brackets are plastic, that they're UV stable. That's generally what we'll look at doing.
Right. I had this crazy idea talking with a mate, Felix, and we were thinking about when you're towing the trailer, having that sort of drag at an angle. So you've got like a deflector shield, but using a solar panel as that deflector shield. Now, I think it's a fantastic idea in one sense, but I am very nervous that being glass, that it cracks if you say chip up a rock to do that.
Generally, with panels these days, they're all pretty strong. A lot of, for instance, I'll use a company, Victron. They actually have a load rating per square meter, per centimeter squared of their panels. Sometimes that's 100 kilos.
Yeah, right.
So, a rock hitting it, it's not going to shatter a panel to the point where it would actually cause major damage. It could do. It is one of those things that can happen.
Yep.
I haven't seen a panel shattered in, it would be at least 5 years. And we've got customers that do the gib, do sort of Sims and Desert stuff. They go out through big runs and road trains past them and all that sort of stuff. And we haven't had a solar panel come back shattered yet. So,
Yeah, right. That see, that's the other option because I sit there. Well, I wanted one on the rooftop tent, but then I do like the idea of that because mine's a bit of a custom made camper. Is in that it's a ute back, just a ute tub with the canopy with a frame inside it to strengthen it for the rooftop tent. But because it is that dual cab ute, sort of it has like a cat, it sort of captures the air, so it drags not very nicely. So that wind coming through just catches and holds it there. It's not really aerodynamic. So looking at sort of different ways I can play around to make it a bit more aerodynamic, and that was a little bit of an idea. I was like, oh, I wonder if I could get away with that. That's actually a bit more comforting knowing, oh yeah, that it's rated so well. If you did get the right solar panel, it might do the job nicely.
Yeah, you see what gets smashed at these caravan roofs all the time. We see it all the time with big stone chips out of the composite in the top of the caravan roofs because they're driving along. Especially if they're doing outback touring with road trains throwing rocks. They're pretty decent these days. Look, it is always a possibility. It is a
Yeah.
glass, but most of the time these days with tempered glass and all that sort of stuff they're using, it's not that common.
How did you get into this? I mean, it's obviously now getting super popular, and I get it because the technology. And if you told me 20 years ago that I could be camping and literally having my coffee machine from my house and running that in the bush, I would have laughed at you. Everything has changed so drastically. Like, you got to love that about technology. But how did you get into this? Is it because you loved camping and just sort of had a passion for it and started dabbling and then went this way?
I started out my trade. I started off as a high performance motor mechanic, so I was in the high performance world and race cars and drag racing and all that sort of thing for many years. And then I sort of evolved. That industry became very taxing on personal life and that sort of thing, as you can imagine. So I've always enjoyed the outdoors in a way. So didn't have a massive camping family, but we grew up, water skiing and that sort of thing all the time. So I loved being outside, and we played all the sports and all that sort of thing. So, as I grew older, camping became a cheap way of going away. That didn't last long, but it was an idea. It started off as a, apprentice going, hey, I can get away for the weekend and not have to hire a hotel or do that sort of thing. So yeah, we got into camping, and I was still in the racing game for that while I was doing that, and I sort of wanted to shift in industry. I'd seen a lot of the full drive industry at the time was sort of lacking in a way with the sort of the world of bike that I came from in the high performance world, where we're sending people down a track at 250 odd mile an hour. We've got to make sure things are done right, but there was a lot of a lack that it wasn't really innovation in the industry then. So we sort of went out and I started dabbling in it quite a lot, and yeah, it's sort of evolved into what it is now. But that's what's kept me. That's what made me want to start the business in the first place. We're still relatively new. I've worked for a lot of companies beforehand, but the biggest thing was seeing what we can do with battery systems now with 12 volt. With even vehicle builds, it's just we can literally build hoses on wheels, and it's well, it sort of brings everything together, and it does. It is very exciting, and that's where we've pushed towards, constantly innovating and just pushing things to the limit. With my car, for instance, that's what I try to do, is go out there and have the smallest system doing the craziest stuff. And if it doesn't work, oh, how do we fix it? How do we make it better? How do we improve it? And that sort of translates down to the customers, and we pass that research on. But that's the main thing for us is well, it is a passion project for me at this stage. It's nothing I thought I would be doing, to be honest with you. But I've just sort of followed the passion, followed it as sort of lifestyle, and thought, hey, I love doing this stuff on weekends. And then I was doing it for a lot of mates, and in the automotive industry that I've been a tradesman for 12 years now, or something like that. So we've just sort of kept rolling, and now we're going, well, it just keeps blowing up, and everything keeps getting bigger and bigger every year. It seems like one year we'll do a big setup and go, well, that's you can't really get any bigger than that, and then next year something comes around that's even more wild, and it's exciting. It's good.
I just sort of had this flash to the monitoring systems now, how it's all Bluetooth and linked to your phones, and just how easy and simplistic everything can be.
Oh,
And there's no more guesswork of, I wonder where the battery is. You can just sit there and
no,
it tells
not
you
at all.
exactly.
Well, we've seen this. Even another innovation that's come out is, for instance, Renault have just come out with their new products, and it's not a plug for them, but they've come out with their new Manager series, and that's been probably the biggest excitement I've had in the industry for the last couple of years. With all their new Alpha range that's coming out, DC chargers with jumpstart features in them, and Bluetooth connectivity directly to the chargers now. It's just phenomenal what they can do, and what these companies are. It is really good to see, because we're seeing a lot of Australian products that are leading the world in technology, and it's been a while since we've done that. Is sort of in Australia now. You look at the states, and they're all running Australian-made products.
That's exciting. It's always good to see, Aussie companies doing well and keeping it in-house. I really like that. And then doing well on the international front as well. I've got both Red Arc controllers, brake controllers, and they're brilliant. I absolutely love them.
The only unit I'll fit now.
Yeah, and I mean, they've got the name. They've got a name for good reason too. They are quality bits of gear. Where, I guess, do you see it changing? Or sorry, actually, let's go back. A full canopy fit out. If you've got someone drops off the ute, flat tray, you're putting on a whole, aluminium canopy, doing a full kit out front to back. What does that take from a time frame perspective? That sort of fascinates me, because there's a lot of work that must go into that.
Yeah, definitely. We sort of look at a lot of our canopy fit outs. Sometimes we get them done generally in a week. Some a couple of days. We've had ones go out to 3 months before, depending on how wild they want to go. We did a Silverado last year that was 137 hours of wiring, which is insanity, but it had the whole suite thrown at it and more. Um, but yeah, generally we can get them around. Most turnarounds about a week. That would be your floor, walls, drawer system fit out, fridge in it, and electrical system. Um, and then we can sort of extend that out depending on how wild we want to go with accessories. We do a lot of the outback tour stuff in house as well, so we do rooftop tents, awnings, shower tents, all that sort of stuff in house. Really the sky's the limit. We do finish the recently just finished the Ranger, which is a complete build as well. Which we'll do GVM upgrades and everything now. So
It's unreal to think about. Like, I just look at the swags compared to rooftop tents now. Like, I started with the old plastic Kings Quickie pop-up one because I hated dragging it over, and like the original ones that you zip up tops, and that was unreal for just putting on the ute, and when it was just the wife and I going away, popping it up, 30 seconds up, 30 seconds down, good to go.
Yeah.
The plastic didn't last that long. I got a couple of years, but there was stress fractures and things like that. So that's where we went the aluminium now, because it's the clamshell. That's even quicker to put up and pop down. Unreal. Like, it's just, I sit there and go, where the tech that has come along and how easy it is to camp in certain, if you get the system right and you set it up well, the sky's the limit as to how easy and quick and comfortable you can make it. I love it. I'm a tech guy, so I love researching. I love looking at it. That's why I wanted to get you on, because it's something I'm really interested in, and I've spent countless hours over the last couple of months trying to work out how I do this canopy. What do I add? Where does it go? What's the best way to do it to get it right? Because I want to get it right. I want something that's lasting a good 10 years. And being simple for the young family, for me solo, just trying to fit that nice, I guess, a dual purpose, but everybody is happy. And I'm so glad some of the tech is out there, because it just makes life so simple. It's just now about nailing that setup.
Yeah, it's phenomenal what we got. We did a recent trip up to Morton Island, and we went out with a couple of the guys in the industry. So it was all of us with all the toys, and even something that's crazy now with Starlink and that sort of thing. Like we were sitting on Morton Island, and I had better internet on the island than I did at home. It's just insanity. We all had rooftop tents, and we get to camp, and it was like a whole bunch of transformers come out. It's just canopy doors come open, tents come up, warnings come out. Within 20 seconds, we're all sitting down having a beer, and we've got Taj Mahal set up all around us. It's phenomenal.
I've got two of the 270 awnings, and now even that they fit to your rooftop tent and they bracket onto the actual tent itself and the showers. You pull it out, it's 30 seconds. I've got the lights clipped in too, so they're just permanently there. It takes 2 seconds to connect, and then everything's done. It is like Transformers, isn't it? You just literally rock up with this box, and then bang, 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 and it's a totally different camp setup that you could stay for weeks. Like, it's just unreal.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's what I sort of built my car around, was doing extended 2 week, 3 week long range trips. Not that we get a lot of time to do it, but we do. It's almost like being at home. It's just as comfortable. You can go out and you can do it these days. And the good thing is, there's a lot of companies out there now, and things have sort of advanced in a way now where it's becoming affordable for a lot of people to actually get out and do it. And companies like Kings, you'll hear a lot of people say, "Oh, quality" and that sort of thing, but they've really transformed the industry, and it's because it's become accessible for a lot of people. And now we're seeing the sort of run over from that, where a lot of people are turning around and going, "Hey, I'm slowly going to build up and get it." Like you said yourself, you start off with a basic rooftop tent, and you go, "Hey, we love this. We're going to keep doing this. We'll invest in a better quality one," and you build your way up to it, and it's good to see the industry is thriving, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
Oh, look, either do I. And, Kings get a good and a bad rap. I've had some hit and misses with them. Some of their gear is bloody brilliant. Some I've had some issues with. It is what it is. Like, at the end of the day, things happen.
And it fits a budget, and what are you comparing? You got to compare apples to apples. And a lot of the products in the market, yeah, we have an influx of cheaper sort of products coming on the market, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's not everyone's got $30,000 to throw at a car to get away camping. People might go away once with their mates on the weekend and buy a $200 swag and say, "Hey, sweet, now I love camping and I'm going to invest in a better setup."
Yeah. I think I always use the analogy, the Ryobi tools. Me mates give me a lot of shit because I have Ryobi tools, and I go, "That's cool," but I'm a teacher. So firstly, I'm not someone that uses them 20 hours a week. I might use them for 10 minutes a month, so I can't value spending thousands and thousands of dollars on something that I barely ever use. And I think that's where everyone has a different budget, a different requirement and context, and that whatever your system you need out there is why, someone like yourself is perfect to go to have that conversation, find out what suits, tailor that to whatever you can spend or need, or whatever that just gets you out there and enjoying it, and then go from there. Continue to find and refine, and that's part of the fun of it too. Like, every time I come back from a camping trip, looking at what I loved, looking at what I didn't, how can I fix that, and it sort of makes me keen to get to the next one to test out the theories or tinker with it and change it, and I love that sort of stuff.
Oh, most definitely, and that's you hit the nail on the head. That's the enjoyable part. Generally going to a shop and just throwing a bulk load of money at your car. I wish that of a lot of people. It's the process that's enjoyable. You come in, we might do for instance, a battery system, you go out and you go, oh God, this is so good compared to using an esky. And then, you'll get an awning or a tent, and then oh, look at this is awesome. And, over a few years, you build your cars up or you build your vehicles up, your campers, your trailers. And then before you know it, you've got something that's the ultimate setup, and you've done it over time and you've enjoyed the process. And that's what we sort of find now is a lot of the customers we're getting in are repeating. We've sort of got most friendships with them, because they're coming back every couple of months for different things, and they want better stuff and they want to upgrade or they want to change this out or that out, and it does, it keeps it exciting.
Well, mate, look, I've had a blast talking to you. Really appreciate it. I know I'll be at your workshop soon because I've got a fair bit to do. The wife and I know what we roughly do. I might have to bring the camper in to say, hey, this is what it's looking like. This is the plans. Let's start to draw up something and get it ready to go. Mate, tell people how they find you. If you're in Sydney, definitely check out Sparked Installations. You've got Facebook. What else can they find you on, mate?
Yeah, we've got Facebook, Instagram is our main platforms. We have a website as well, which is just sparkedinstallations.com.au. There's inquiry forms on there, and then all our contact details, emails, all over our socials. So yeah, by any means, give me a call, send me a message, do anything like that. More than happy to help out, even if it's just to give you a bit of advice, point you in the right direction. More than happy to help.
Mate, really appreciate you coming on. Nathan from Sparked Installations. Check it out, guys. You won't regret it. Some of the builds have been absolutely mint, and they just look so damn good. I am very jealous and envious when I see some of those cool bits of kit coming out of that workshop. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. Bye for now. You've been listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt. Thanks for tuning in and can't wait to catch you next time. But in the meantime, if you want more, you can find it at linktr.ee/Australian Hunting and Beyond. That will give you our YouTube, Instagram, X, Facebook, you name it. We'll catch you next time.